everyone. Welcome back to PPC Office Hours. My name is Michelle Kop from Level 28 Media.
And my name is Stu Atkins, better known as Papa Stu, because I'm a dad of 3 kids and I'm a grandfather of 2. And sometimes Michelle even calls me not Mama Stu, but Papa Stu.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for joining, Stu. For today's topic here, we are going to be talking about if you're ready to launch Google Ads. So, Stu and I have been working in this space for quite some time. If you've watched the previous episodes, you know how well tuned we are with, launching new campaigns and, just doing lead generation for a bunch of different service-based clients. And a very common question that we get in speaking engagements and just in general is, am I even ready to run Google Ads? And actually, most potential clients are not ready, or let's just say small business owners. They're not
Yeah.
ready because they don't have certain things dialed in. So in this episode, we're really going to dig deep into what it takes to be ready for Google PPC. Because not everyone is going to be ready. Just because you have the budget doesn't mean that you are ready. There's a lot of other things that you need in place in order to be ready for Google Ads. So let's go ahead and dive in. Stu, did you have a question or a few questions here?
Well, as far as speaking of readiness, what are some of the first steps that you typically take as an agency owner, and maybe even someone who's going to be attempting to run it on their own? What would you recommend?
Yeah, so the first thing is, do they even have the budget? So figuring out what the budget should be and a good starting point. We've talked about this before. You don't want to underfund,
Yeah.
especially when you're starting out, because we get a lot of people saying like, "Oh, I'll just start out with $200 a month, and then if it does well, I'm gonna put another, I'm gonna 10x that, and I'm gonna spend this much more if it's doing well." Well, you won't be able to really see results if you're not funding enough. Every market is going to be different. Every industry is
Yep.
going to be different. So that's the first test that I do is
Yeah.
testing to
Excuse me.
see, do they even have the budget, or figure out what the budget should be, and do they even have the budget. I'm not going to go in and dig any deeper, but part of that research and figuring that out has to do with doing some solid keyword research, looking into the industry and the market, the products, the competitors, and then seeing what the average cost per clicks are, then determining a budget coming out of that. And then from there, if the client is okay with spending that, then they are on their way to be ready for PPC. But that's the first little litmus test that I do, even before moving forward with anything else. Is there something that you look for, Stu, when it comes to the research?
Um, well, absolutely, you have to do solid keyword research so you know what an average cost per click is. So, and you want to be prepared for to bid in the higher end of that. So you're going to be at the top of the page. You're going to be competitive. You're not going to go in the cheap. You got to pay to play, and you have to have a budget for to be able to fly by night in this area. Well, not fly by night, but fly by budget, I should say, within for at least 3 months is what I'd recommend. So but you just have to have funds to really, number one, get the data to be able to optimize and to move forward. If you don't get the data, you're not getting the information you need. The data is even more important than the budget, but you've got to, in order to get the data, you have to have an adequate budget. So I couldn't agree with that more. And then on the keyword research side, that's critical because that's foundational to everything. And that's where a lot of the recommendations come from. So a realistic budget it's absolutely critical. And if you don't go there, it's not worth bothering. You're just wasting your time.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Michelle, uh, as far as the sales process, people don't even think about that sometimes. And uh, our job as agencies is to get as many leads as possible. It's a client's responsibility. We've mentioned this briefly before, is to close those leads. So talk to us about follow up and lead closure and even CRM tools and even having a halfway decent voicemail system. Just some of those simple things that we've experienced in the past were absolute disasters that weren't in place. And even with a good lead there, I mean, just tell us your experience in that area.
Well, we've had clients spending tens of thousands of dollars per month just burning through budget, and their front desk CSR wasn't answering the phone. It's kind of the same story a lot of times, and it's really dialing in those operations. That's what really needed to be done. Because here we are trying to generate as many leads as possible, but then they just go nowhere because no one's actually doing the active follow-up needed. And sometimes it doesn't just take one phone call to get in touch with this lead. It might take maybe 8 to 10 phone calls. So being in tune with that and understanding how your ideal customers or leads behave, and then having
Yeah.
the right systems in place to then follow up, whether it be calling them back, adding them to a drip sequence or a text SMS sequence type of thing in order to re-engage with these people, because you just paid good money for them as leads. Why would you just let them go by the wayside? And a lot of times it's not the small business owner that's letting them go by the wayside. It's the people that are in charge of the operations that are not really doing their due diligence to really follow up. So that's kind of like where that big frustration is. So the key here is speed to the lead. You need to make sure that you are answering the calls when they're coming in. You need to make sure that when those form submissions are coming in, you're following up as soon as possible. It would be ideal to have some type of like automation in place to import those leads directly into your CRM, and so that you can keep track of your touch points with these leads, so that if, hey, look, I spoke with this person on 327. Okay, it's 4/1. It's time to do another follow up because I haven't heard back. So, and then on top of that, we talked about voicemail systems. Oh my goodness. Remember, we've even done some secret shopping on some clients,
Yeah.
and it would just go straight to voicemail, when we call, or they won't even have a voicemail set up. So that's another thing, is making sure that that you and your team knows what's going on. You're working in lockstep with each other, and that have a good system in place to capture people, even if something were to fall through the cracks.
Yes, and I exactly agree. And if you get after hours leads that come through, if you're running an account 24/7, and you may have leads that come in the middle of the night, uh, some people they like to leave a voicemail. And you and I have had the experience before. It was a big client, well known client, company wise, that they ran out of voicemail storage.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I mean, there's no excuse for that. So
Yeah.
if it's after hours, make sure it's a solid voicemail system. They can leave a message, and so they can get back with them as soon as possible. I have a client that does an incredible job on lead follow up. They send me every month a detailed Excel spreadsheet. They feed it into HubSpot, and then they break the Excel sheet down by warm lead, qualified
Mm-hmm.
lead, a bad lead, and then
Mm-hmm.
they break it down by a percentage. And
Mm-hmm.
so at the end of the month, we know, okay, 91% of the leads were qualified or a warm lead category. So those are really good leads, and they
Mm-hmm.
take the time and the effort to map it all out in an Excel sheet and let my agency let us know the lead quality.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really important to track that, whether you're running Google Ads yourself or as agencies when we manage them. Getting the customer feedback on the quality of the leads is absolutely critical, because that tells us, okay, maybe we're targeting improperly or we're not
Mm-hmm.
targeting specifically enough. If we're getting good leads, we know we're being relevant, we're capturing that intent. So the lead follow up is just so important. But for as a small business or as a client that's capturing that and measuring it, they need to track it and let us know what's going on.
Yeah, feedback is really key in
Oh,
order for us to do our job well.
it really is.
Yeah,
It really is.
absolutely. Stu, I have a question for you. How important would you say it is for a small business owner who wants to dip their toes into Google PPC to understand the bare basics of PPC?
You mean managing it themselves?
No, if they wanted to give it to, let's say, an agency, how important is it for the small business owner to understand the bare basics of it?
I think it's really important because if you don't have an understanding of what you're spending your hard-earned money for, you may misinterpret the reports you're getting, the data you're getting. You've got to understand the fundamentals of how it works, that paid search is essentially an auction, and you're
Mm-hmm,
bidding on keywords based on the price and the competitive nature of that auction.
mm-hmm,
And and your budget is going to be a big part of it, as we've talked about, where it's going to show up. And then also, what is an impression? What is a click? What is average cost per click? What is a click through rate? A lot of people have no idea what is an impression is, and that is so important because I often look at impressions first before I do clicks, because that's going to indicate demand. And if you're seeing lots of impressions, okay, there's some demand out there. Now we got to make sure we translate the demand into adequate click-through rates that are leading to leads, et
mm-hmm.
cetera, et cetera. So the basic fund, there's maybe 5 to 8 key critical metrics, and we should probably talk about some of those metrics. Impressions, clicks, average cost per click, cost
Click-through
per
rate,
lead,
conversion
think
rate.
conversion rate, things of that nature. Monthly budget, and what's the mathematics behind the good marketing, because all good marketing is based on mathematics. Some of those basics are just so important for them to understand.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think coming at it from another angle is it's important to understand the bare basics of PPC. You don't have to be an expert, but you should understand the basics so you know if the consultant or agency that you're working with knows what they're talking about. So
Yeah,
you
it's
need to
like
do,
it is.
yeah.
It's like investing. Never invest in something you don't understand.
Yeah, exactly. So do your own due diligence. And really, marketing is an investment. PPC is an investment. So take your time to really understand it. The consultant or agency that you're working with should be able to break things down in a more simple way for you to understand it. But at the same time, you should have a decent level of understanding just to know that these people actually know what they're talking about, and they're not trying to take you for a ride. Because you and I both know we've spoken to many small business owners who've been distraught dealing with agencies that have taken advantage of them because they've just put all their trust in them and not really either followed up or asked the right questions in order to really be in tune with what's going on. It's really important to have an on like not just a one it's not a one way relationship. It has to go both ways with the agency and the actual client and vice versa. Because if the agency is doing all the work but they're not getting the feedback, there's only so far the agency can go. Versus if you have the feedback loop coming back, then at least the agency knows what they could be improving on. So that's pretty much the feedback that I have on that.
That's good, and that's great. And a good agency will know when a client needs a little bit of education,
Hmm.
and a good agency will be willing to educate them a little bit too. I once had a client that she said, well, one of my best friends' average cost per click is $2.50, and our average cost per click is $7 per click. What's wrong with our account?
Hmm.
And and I asked her, I said, well, what industry was it in? And it was a completely different industry,
Different
and it was
market.
an e-commerce site versus lead generation. And
Yeah.
I had to explain to her, different market, different industry, different focus. E-commerce versus, I mean, paid search lead generation for most part is usually always going to be more expensive than e-commerce, but it can vary. but it's not apples to apples. And I had to explain to her completely different. This is apples and orange. You can't plug it into ours and criticize us for that. And she got it and she understood it, but it just shows how some clients may have no idea. So we do need to be sensitive, and we've done it long enough. We can quickly educate them via email or just quickly explain it to them, and that shows our value and the value that an agency can bring to educate them too. And I think that's important. I mean, you can't spend tons of time doing it, but it is important because the more you educate them, that is value to them, and it's a win-win for both.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, that's really key. What else would you say is necessary to, that you need in order to launch Google Ads?
Well, you can have the best account setup, design, and structure in the world. You can have more than enough budget that you need. Everything can be set up perfectly, but if you're not sending the traffic to a either a website or a custom landing page designed for usability, user friendliness, and for lead generation, if it's not designed for conversions, and if it's then that's a huge problem. You're wasting your time. And why don't we, I think it's a great idea we talk about what constitutes a page you're going to send a potential customer to. What's
Yeah.
important?
Yeah. So just making it really easy for people to take that next step with you. First of all, telling them who you are, why they should trust you. And then from there, making it super easy for them to know what's your phone number and giving them a form or a way to contact you. Outlining all your amenities or benefits, whatever it is about your service that sets you apart from your competitors, with testimonials to build trust, logos from either clients that you've worked with or logos of associations that you're part of. That's really key with that trust factor, because a lot of times people, they're not going to be looking at you. They're going to be doing their research across other competitors. So what do you have that's different from your competitors, and why should people choose you? And on top of that, make it very easy for people to engage with you. I can't tell
Yeah.
you how many times I look at landing pages and the form is nowhere to be found, or the website, and you have to go on a wild goose chase in order to find a way to contact them. So that's really, really, really key. Why are you burying the treasure when the treasure should be
Yeah.
right there, front and center, for people to easily see?
Yeah, no, that's good. I like that. Why are you burying the treasure? So, with brute, utter simplicity is important. When they get on the page, it shouldn't be complicated. Most website pages and landing pages, you could cut 50% of the content. It's important you have a value proposition at the top and a benefit statement, just a few bullet points that tries to set you apart. Very simple, clear, to the point content. That value proposition states simply in one or two sentences why do they even want to bother with you. And
Mm-hmm.
then that form fill often is best at the upper right of the page, or the top of the page. Upper
On
right of the page
mobile.
works well
Mm-hmm.
too. And then when you get it optimized, and when you get it a landing page that's actually designed from the mobile side of things too, that form fill is going to be up there near the top too. So, and the number of fields. Ideally, all you really need is first name, email, phone number, and comments. People sometimes freak out if you even want their last name. So why bother? Just the least amount of time and the effort they have to put in is better. Now, some industries you need state, you need company. It really depends. And you'll remember that one client we work with, they had like 20 fields on their form fill, and it was an 80% abandon rate. So
Mm-hmm.
the form fill simplicity is so important.
Yeah.
Phone number, top, middle, bottom, if at all possible, but just don't overdo the content. You got to reduce the page attention ratio. So there's hardly anything to distract the engagement, and you want them to do essentially two things: make a phone call or fill out the form, or one of those two.
Mm-hmm.
And some clients out there, all you need is a form fill, and you don't need a phone call. But ideally, you start with both. And then if you're going to default to one, it's usually the form fill. But sometimes it can vary. Sometimes it can just
Sometimes
be a
some just want phone
phone
calls.
calls.
So
That's right. That's right. I
yeah.
have a client that all they want is phone calls. I have another one. All they want is form fills. Some want both. So, but the point is, you just want to make it as simple as possible. You don't want to take them off page, get them distracted, and that's the beauty of landing pages, custom landing pages, because they're so simple and they're only designed. You'll get an increased conversion rate too. And most websites have page attention ratios in the 20 to 50 to 80 to 1, which is
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah. I think like there's also something to be said with land forms that have more fields than just like the basics,
Yep.
because sometimes some clients they really want to optimize for the quality, and the
Yeah.
more fields that you ask for or the more fields that you want them to put in fill out, you will get better quality, but your quantity is going to shrink. So you're going to
Yeah.
have to play a game of seesaw in order to figure out that happy medium between quality and quantity. If you're all about quantity, then sure, your route is probably going to be best. But if you
Yep.
want to really optimize towards quality, you're going to probably want to add a little bit more fields, just a little bit more. You don't want to overdo it. I had a client, he had like 20 to 30 fields in order to like even, submit the form. And then a part of that, of his funnel was like having someone sit down and watch a 30-minute video of him talking about the service that he's providing, which I thought was a little bit overkill, but he's really trying to weed out a lot of the junk and really
Yeah.
really get tight with the audience that he's paying for. I mean, his cost per lead was really high, but his customer lifetime value was like in the $20,000 to $50,000 range. So it
Hmm.
was okay for him to really hone in and try to like, bring in the best qualified leads by asking for more. But I wouldn't go with like 20, 30 fields. That's way too much. Like I
Yeah.
told him not to.
I agree.
And then he was like, no, but I want to. So we still got leads, but that hurt his conversion rate. So it's really finding that happy medium. And hey, sometimes the website does perform better too. If we're
Yeah.
looking at if we were looking at something where it's like, B2B that might require a larger customer life cycle, it could take very well much longer than just a quick, simple B2C journey where someone just like, oh, well, I'm looking for a locksmith. Okay, bam. I'm just going to call the first one I see. But B2B or high ticket B2C could take much longer and could require a website. So that's why it's like, usually the landing page does well, but then also the website, could, if it's optimized well, could also perform better because some people might just need some more information.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And that client I was mentioning does the amazing Excel spreadsheet of all the lead quality. We use both. We use both their website and custom landing pages, and
Mm,
they have so many products we'll send the brand campaign to the website, and then if they've launched a new product or a product they want to focus on, we'll hyper focus on a custom landing page for them on that.
mm-hmm,
So we'll use a combination of both and just send, one campaign will go to custom landing page, one will go to the website.
mm-hmm.
So I mean, they've got hundreds of, probably 100 products at least. So it would be crazy to attempt to do that on a custom
Yeah.
landing page format. So you can create a microsite where on a custom landing page environment, you have a home page, and then maybe you send them to two other branches based on what the campaign is and what the needs are. So it really gives you a lot of flexibility. But I agree. Sometimes it's websites, sometimes it's custom landing page, or
You
sometimes
got to
it's both.
test. Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. Exactly. Okay, so what would you say to someone, Stu, if they expect to see results like within a week when they're launching PPC? Are they ready?
I would tell them to go pound sand. No, I didn't. I tell them to go pound digital sand.
How about
No,
kick some rocks?
yeah, go kick some rock. No, it's so important to set the expectations. What I say is, um, some markets, if you got a strong budget, and we do our best to set up the campaign. Some markets, boom, it pops right away, and you just get lots of activity. That again, that client I was just talking about, their industry with their 100 products or so plus, it's very active industry. Man, I mean, man, we launched that campaign, and boom, we started getting impressions, clicks, leads right away.
Mm-hmm.
And so very active industry. Some industries are niche. It's going to be slower. We got to learn. We got to gather
Mm.
the data. So it really varies. So what I say is, I set the expectation. I say it takes at least 2 to 3 months to get enough data to really optimize. Sometimes you'll start getting leads right away. Sometimes it takes time. We can guarantee the quality of what we're doing to set up to get you traffic, but we can't guarantee results. And it does take time, and we do our best to get you results.
Exactly.
But patience, and again, that time plus data plus patience equation is critical. And you just have to be crystal clear on setting the expectations, because some people are so impatient, and some get it, and I love that, and I compliment them for that, and they understand that. But you just have to really set the expectation.
Or sometimes you'll set the expectation and they say they get it, but then a day after your launch, they'll be like, well, what happened to all my leads?
Yeah,
Or what happened to
yeah.
the leads? And they're like, well, I need to remind you, this is the conversation that we had.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also important to remind them there are things beyond our control also. We
Mm-hmm.
can't control the economy. We can't control demand in your industry. And you may have a competitor that is going hog wild on budget that's 10 times your budget.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, we've got to modify some things in the competitive campaign if we're running it. So it's a balance of controlling what you can control versus realizing what you can't control, and then balancing that and trying to get results based on that. I think I think we lost Michelle with a minor glitch here. She'll probably be back in just a second. So it is really important to set expectations, and as I said, uh, you as a listener, you as a potential client from no matter what agency you're running, no matter what, if you're managing it yourself or you've hired someone to do that for you, uh, being realistic and patient is important. And clients and individuals that are experienced with paid search realize how important it is for the patience factor, and it truly is a win-win. So that's a good test for an agency you may be looking at to make sure that they take the time and effort to really explain that, and that's extremely important. So we'll wait for Michelle to come in here. Again, I think we may have had a minor glitch. So let's see. I'll see if she's. Yeah, not sure what happened here. It could be Murphy's Law of the infamous internet. Here she comes again. So,
Again, I am
yeah,
sorry
again,
about
okay.
that. All
All right,
right.
no problem. I just
Well,
kind of took it by storm and started dancing and singing, and no, I just went on with the conversation as far as just talking
perfect.
about expectations and appreciating people that are patient, and how that is such a win-win. So I just kept talking a little bit, thinking, realizing that Murphy's Law was trying to invade our
Oh,
podcast here.
yes, absolutely. Okay, so we're almost done here. How important is it for businesses to have a strong online reputation with Google My Business? Is that necessary for PPC? What would you say?
Uh, I Google My Business. I don't operate in that space much. Typically, now I could be wrong here. I'll go out on a limb. usually Google My Business tends to be more effective for the retail environment, the walk-in retail environment, the service-based retail
Mm,
environment, where people are constantly engaging with customers face to face, and it's a face to face service.
mhm.
Uh, in that regard. But it can be tricky to set up Google My Business. It can be frustrating. I've run into clients that have 2 or 3 Google My Business accounts. They can't figure it out. Getting support for it sometimes can be
Mm,
difficult. So I would appreciate your feedback. It's an area I don't work in very much, and
mhm.
I've seen more frustration than success in Google My Business. But that's not to say it can't be effective, because I know it can be for some
Yeah.
businesses.
So here's my thought. Like, okay, so it's not necessary to do PPC. Like, you don't need a Google My Business in order to have to run a PPC campaign, but it can certainly help or hurt you if you have really bad reviews
Yeah, yeah, that's
or
true.
really good reviews. So that's another thing. You want to also make sure that you're building that on the side. Google My Business is more for like local SEO. It helps with that,
Yeah,
but for PPC, it's not necessary. But if you have really bad reviews coming through, then that could hurt you a lot in terms of people not wanting to convert. Because as we talked about with the journey, there's multiple touch points when people engage. They might start by going to your PPC campaign or landing page, then they might go to your website, then they might go to your Google My Business. And if they see you have a lot of negative reviews, it's probably going to be a no, and they're going to go with someone else. Or if you have really great reviews, that's all more reason for someone to
yeah,
want to
yeah,
engage with you. So that's really where I was coming from in terms of having a strong reputation. It's going to overall help you. So definitely, have that like as in your back pocket if you do also want to launch your Google Ads campaign. If you have some negative reviews, definitely address them. Don't just like let them go by the wayside, or necessarily just like like respond in a defensive way. You want to show when you're responding to negative reviews, you want to also show the people that are reading the reviews what type of experience they'd have, even if they'd had a bad experience with you, how you would respond to them.
yeah.
So that's also a really big piece of this. So are you ready to launch Google Ads? That was really the core. We covered a lot of the main topics for this podcast. Most small business owners are not ready, based off of everything we talked about. But talking to a consultant, or agency could help guide you in that direction of being ready. But yeah, definitely the first step is having the right budget and sufficient funds in order to even run your campaign.
Yeah, it's like the Boy Scouts, always be prepared.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You got to be prepared.
That's right. You got to be prepared. You got to be prepared.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Okay, thank you. Have a
Thanks.
fantastic day, week, month, year, and life in PPC.
All right.
Okay.